Welcome to Insight Marketing Success, the podcast where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience, from vision to execution.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much for joining us on IMS for a new episode here. So, Kevin, I had the opportunity to talk to you, but for our audience, tell us who are you, who you are.
Yes, my name is Kevin Cahill, and Ricardo, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. I'm honored and delighted. I am a real estate broker strategist. I've been a real estate broker and realtor since 1999. I began my career in Cleveland, Ohio, and very quickly was able to have a great deal of success in real estate in Cleveland and recruited a huge company into my company, which put me on my company's radar for national leadership opportunities. And so in 2009, I became a managing broker for a large real estate franchise brand in Tampa Bay, Florida. And I had at various points, about 600 real estate agents under my real estate license. And I had direct responsibility for profit and loss, for growth, for retention, for our brand presence in the communities that we served. I was then hired away by my number one competitor, which was a huge national brokerage. And I became an executive vice president with that company. And I was charged with running all of their offices in St. Petersburg, Florida. At about that same time, my wife, Lisa, she and I had recently met. We were dating, we got married, and she decided to join me as a real estate agent after 23 years as an accountant, as a certified public accountant.
Wow.
And she was just tired of those long hours during tax season.
Yeah.
I always seemed to be having a ton of fun, and so she wanted to join me. And so in 2012, she joined me, and pretty quickly thereafter, she was like, Kevin, I think we could go off and create our own company and have even more success and more fun. And so in 2013, we created our own company and grew that across Florida and then into Seattle, Washington, where we started to spend our summers to get out of the Florida summer heat. And in 2023, about 10 years after creating that company, we were able to successfully merge that company into, at that point, the largest single brokerage, a publicly traded company, eXp Realty. And so in 2023, we folded our Real Lean into eXp Realty. And I've just been a real estate brokerage executive for the last 15, 16 years. And so that's a little bit of who I am and what I've done.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you have a lot of obviously experience, professional experience, but how did you start? What was your education? Where did you start that education?
So I went to college at Kent State University in Northeast Ohio, where I grew up, and studied English and communication, which I just sort of liked the notion of public speaking, and little did I know that that's actually mission critical to any success in life is, having something important to say and making certain that you're saying it the right way to the right people at the right time. And so that was where I got my education, and I waited tables to get through college. And I actually continued waiting tables after college while I was trying to figure out now, what am I going to do? I was thinking, do I get into public relations? Do I get into marketing? Do I get involved in political campaigning? And one of my clients at the restaurant, he came in every Sunday night with his clients. He was the president of a very large real estate brokerage company. And I actually loved homes. I loved architecture. I loved repairing homes, going to hardware stores and making my home look its best. And all of a sudden I thought maybe I should consider a career in real estate. And so that's really how I started. And I like to joke that I made a very successful transition from food to shelter.
Very good. So in that process of making that transition, and when you became a realtor, what was the biggest campaign or thing that you learned that gave you results?
I had been I'll go all the way back to my childhood. When I was 11 years old, I became a paper boy and I was out delivering newspapers every afternoon and every Saturday and Sunday morning. And I realized very early on that I'm going to be walking a couple of hours every day. I may as well go out and get a Sony Walkman and listen to cassettes and listen to educational stuff. So I'd go to the library and I'd start getting these books on cassette, which is dating me and telling everyone how old I am because they weren't on CD yet and it wasn't on my iPod. It was back on a Walkman. But I listened to Zig Ziglar and a bunch of other wonderful motivational speakers. And I learned at age 11 that you can get everything you want out of life if only you're willing to help enough other people get what they want out of life. And so for me, it was just, starting with getting them the newspaper and letting them know that the newspaper was a good value and I would deliver it every day and I'd put it inside their storm doors so it wasn't wet. And I grew my paper route, had enormous success as a young kid and just enjoyed that. And then as I was waiting tables in college, I realized, wow, I could have a lot of success if I take great care of these customers at the restaurant. And then I took that same mindset and I realized, wow, I know all these people in Cleveland who come into the restaurant, who know me from social groups, who know me from neighborhood block parties, who I realized I can have all the success I want if only I'm willing to help enough of these people get what they want out of life. And so that was sort of the start to how I looked at my business was how do I grow my database with my ideal people and stay front and center so that when they think of real estate, they think of me, and that when the time is right, they're either calling me or recommending me to a friend. And so from a very early point, I realized that my success in real estate is in direct proportion to the number of people who, when they think of real estate, think of me.
Very good, very good. And so, I mean, that's a very good conclusion. It's a great story as to how you got there. And I know there's a universal law of what you're talking about. You help others, you're helping yourself, and everybody wins. It's not just you, right? And so, um, so tell us about a campaign that you did so people will be thinking of Kevin when Realtor came to. Did you do like magnets? Did you do a calendar? What did you do?
I'll go back to that time when Lisa and I created our own company. I had moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Tampa Bay, Florida, specifically to run real estate brokerages. And running those real estate brokerages and having profit and loss responsibility, my focus was on recruiting real estate agents, training real estate agents, helping those real estate agents have success, creating an environment and an atmosphere that fostered their success and an atmosphere and environment that they would never want to leave. And then when Lisa and I went off and created our own company, all of a sudden we were starting from scratch. And Lisa and I were talking about that this morning in anticipation of our call with you today. And that was by far the biggest marketing challenge we faced. How do we grow from having left a massive real estate company where I was a corporate executive vice president, responsible for hundreds of real estate agents, to now it's just me and Lisa, and we're starting from scratch. And I don't know anybody here except real estate agents. All I've done is recruit real estate agents for years in Tampa Bay. And Lisa and I got married, and she moved to where I was living. She was living in Sarasota, and now she's living out on the beach in St. Petersburg, Florida. She doesn't know anybody, and she doesn't know the industry. She doesn't know how to have success in real estate, but thankfully she was with me, so we're going to have success. But we faced a huge marketing challenge. How do we create a new brand and have it stand out? And what we knew immediately was that we had to create a unique value proposition that made us stand out and which prompted our ideal clients to raise their hand and say, hey, Kevin, Lisa, I want to talk with you about selling my home. So
Okay.
we created this business model based on feedback that I had been hearing for years running these real estate brokerages. And that is home sellers and home buyers. Yes, they want a knowledgeable real estate agent. They want somebody who's skillful, who's experienced. They want, if they're selling their home, they want their home marketed very extensively and aggressively. Oh, and they don't want to pay a lot of money in fees.
Mhm.
And I was working for these massive brokerage brands who, by and large, would never let their agents be flexible with their fees.
Okay.
Lisa comes from this background as a CPA, and she's saying to herself, as an accountant doing these tax returns for corporations and trusts and high net worth families and individuals, if ever they sold a piece of real estate, that single commission line item expense was far and away the largest single one expense they had that whole year on their tax return. And she thought there could be a better way. Technology, innovation, everything's improving. What can we do about that? And I knew from talking with hundreds of real estate agents, oh, Kevin, I could have gotten that listing if only I could have come down on my fee. So we decided, let's provide full service while charging flexible lien fees. And so that's how we created Real Lien, real estate with lien fees.
Mm.
But we had this marketing challenge, which was we were still sort of dealing with the repercussions of the 2008 credit market collapse.
Okay.
The real estate market was just sort of bouncing off the bottom of the lowest it had been in a long time. Home sellers were reluctant to sell, but some people had to sell. People inherited a property, somebody was going through a divorce, people were, downsizing, moving, getting relocated. There were still people selling. And so we said to ourselves, how do we stand out in this market? And how do we position ourselves as a real resource to these people? And so we realized with our flexible fee model, we just needed one client and we could make it happen. We could create a success story, get a testimonial, get a glowing review. But we just were having a difficult time in that difficult market getting somebody to say, yeah, let's hire Kevin and Lisa. We found this gentleman who was selling a property in our neighborhood, and it was for sale by owner. He was trying to do it on his own. We called him up. He had just recently gotten married. He was selling off this property. And we told him about our business model. And he said, no, I'm going to just go about it on our own. I got the lawn sign out there. Somebody will call me. I said, well, if somebody's calling you, are you going to offer a buyer's agent a fee? And he said, oh, sure. I'll be happy to do that. I said, let me make you a deal. We will market your property for free. Offer that money to the buyer's agent. If there is no buyer's agent, just agree to pay us that fee that you would have happily paid a buyer's agent. And if a buyer's agent brings us a buyer, Lisa and I will work for free. And he was like, oh, I'm not sure. This sounds a little weird. And his wife was like, this is a no-brainer. These are very experienced people. He's been a broker now for all these years. She's a CPA. These are not clowns. These are serious people. So he agreed to let us market his home. We did aggressive marketing online. We did print, postcard, newspaper, magazine advertising. We held open houses. We had our lawn sign out there. We eventually had an offer come to us from a buyer's agent. And so Lisa and I didn't make any money off that direct transaction. But in the next 12 months, we looked back on it and we said, that person, that person, that person all came from this one. And then that listing and that listing and that listing all came from that first one. And over the years, we've looked back on the springboard activity we got from that first listing, and we can point to $175,000 of income by working for free.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It happens. That's fantastic. That's a great story. But in the process, you help that guy and you help yourselves.
We met a ton of people. We started creating a brand name for ourselves in that community. We were meeting all the right people, people who were immediately in our market area. It's the type of thing I would suggest to another agent. They're just not brave enough to do it. But Lisa and I had just a certainty, and we were standing strong in our convictions that this is all going to work out just fine.
Wonderful. All right. So how do you approach storytelling in the brand communications that you use now to sell yourselves?
You know, we've been using storytelling the entirety of our time together, Lisa and I. When she first joined me, I was running that real estate brokerage, and she was an agent in one of my offices, and she was brand new to the business, but she knew a ton of people from her accounting career. One of those, so we started with a very first story of our success, which was sort of how we built our flexible fee model. And that is that one of her accountant friends said, "Hey, I have this client. They've got a commercial property to sell." And commercial properties, typically the agents charge somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% on a commercial listing. But Lisa said, "You know what? I'm not comfortable charging 10% because I think those fees are too high, and I'd be totally happy charging 6%." So she took that commercial listing, and very quickly, very extensive, aggressive marketing, she was able to bring a buyer who wrote an offer with her directly. So she was the only agent involved in the fee, in the transactions. It would only be a fee to her, not to another buyer's agent. And those buyers were very serious, but their offer was a little bit less than the commercial seller was willing to accept. But they were close. And so, as an accountant, she took her pencil to paper and she started looking at how her fee was in there. And she realized, wow, if I am a little bit flexible with my fee, I can bring the buyer and seller a little closer together. There's still a little bit of gap, but let me talk to the seller and ask the seller, would they come down a little bit if I move my fee a little bit? And we'd have to get the buyer to come up a little bit. Everyone agreed. It worked out incredibly well. And that was the beginning of our flexible fee model story.
Okay.
Then we talk about how we were having all this success over and over again, how our average client was saving over $10,000 in fees. $10,000 is a lot. People
Yes.
were very interested in that story of, wow, she's putting deals together by being flexible with her fees. I can see myself in that story. And it worked very well. And we use storytelling even to this day.
Wonderful. All right, Kevin, I only met you recently, but you seem to be very authentic to yourself. How do you keep yourself authentic in the professional setting?
It's a great thing to talk about because really, no matter what industry you're in, you and I can agree that people work with people and people buy people before they buy what the people are selling. If you went into a store and you didn't like how you were treated by the customer service representative or the clerk at the counter, you might want what they're selling, but you're like, I'm not going to buy it today, or I'm not going to buy it here. So what you really have to focus on is, how do you want to be treated and how do you treat other people in that same way? And so it really just permeates everything that we do. And I think about it in terms of just, authentic, like you just have to be consistent. So for example, I'm wearing this, golf shirt. It's always buttoned up to the top. I always look that way. Now, if I went to the grocery store or the hardware store, if I was going to drop off recycling, I'm always looking like this. And people would always look at me and say, I could imagine him selling my home because I always look like I could be dressed appropriately to talk with a client.
Mm-hmm.
As a side benefit, Lisa likes that I always look nice.
Great benefit.
And so it's really just a matter of having this sort of pattern that I do these certain things every day, and it's just who I actually am. So I don't have to put it on to go for work. I'm just always ready for work. I'm always ready to talk with a client. I'm always dressed right. My mind is always ready to talk with somebody. If somebody called me up on a Friday evening, actually, here's a story. You want a great story? Here's another
Sure.
great story. So Lisa and I were in St. Petersburg. The phone rings at about 5:30 on a Friday evening, and it was somebody that we had met at that very first listing that we took for free. These people had met us. They kept in touch with us. They liked us. We got to know them. They're very sweet people. They called us up on Friday evening and said, "Hey, a new property just came on the market. It's right where we're thinking about looking. And, could you show it to us tomorrow?" And Lisa and I had just had dinner and we were dressed nicely. And I always have a laptop or an iPad or my phone. I can always do business anywhere I am. I'm always ready to do business. So they called us up and they said, "Hey, can you show us this house tomorrow?" And Lisa and I are like, "This home seems priced right. Why don't we go over there this evening?" "Oh, no, we don't want to interrupt you tonight." "No, it's no problem. We really feel it's important that we get over there and get in that house right away." "Well, that's great. If you don't mind on a Friday night, spending your Friday evening with us, I'm sure you guys could be doing something more fun." "No, this is really important. If you want to take a look at that house, we need to get you in there right away." Now, this wasn't like fake pressure. We knew the market. We knew that that property was priced right. It was in the exact area they wanted. It had all the amenities that they were looking to find. We had been working with them for a while. So we dropped everything we were doing to meet with them on a Friday evening. When we went into the home, there were dozens of business cards on the counter. Agents rushed over there to see this home. And they were like, "Wow, it's a good thing you got us in here on Friday night." I said, "Well, do you want to make an offer?" Not high pressure or anything, but just ready to be of service. "Well, we could write it up tomorrow." I'm like, "No, we should pretty much jump on this right now." So I pull out my computer, we write it up right there on the kitchen counter. It's a vacant house. It was no interruption to the home seller. So we just wrote it up right there. I emailed it over to the other agent. As we left the house, I called the other agent. She said, "Yeah, Kev, got your offer. Thank you so much." We'd worked with her before. She knew who we were. She notified us, "Hey, just FYI, we got a handful of offers already, but I'm really glad you got your offer and I'm going to be presenting these tomorrow morning and I'll let you know how it goes." She calls us up tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, and she says, "Hey, Kevin, I encourage the sellers to work with your buyers because I know you and Lisa. I know you're great to work with. I've worked with you before." And so, we had this reputation in the industry. We had this experience with these home sellers that got them the house because by Saturday morning, they would have already been too late.
Yeah.
And so it's just this sort of interesting thing that you just have to be consistently ready to serve people. And if you're not of a mindset that you've got to be consistently ready to serve people, I'd recommend that you do what you can to adjust that, but then make that who you authentically are. Again, going back to Zig Ziglar, you can get everything you want out of life if only you're willing to help enough other people get what they want out of life. Well, then if that's true, then that means you drop what you're doing on Friday evening to get clients into a home if it's the right home priced right.
Awesome. Oh, great story. Great story, Clement. All right. So life is life, right? And I try to put a smile all the time myself. But there are times when life comes with unexpected things. So how do you stay grounded when you have unexpected things and life becomes overwhelming, whether for business or for life? What do you grab onto?
A couple things I'd love to talk about in that comment. Your audience, the people that you work with, they're overwhelmingly probably small business owners.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about a small business owner like I am, like you are, is that if you're doing something that you really love, it's not really feeling like work, it's feeling like more of what you love to do. Lisa and I were watching a documentary recently on Walt Disney. And Walt Disney just loved doing what he was doing, which was creating and creating stories and creating experiences and creating memories. And so for these small business owners, I would think that you just need a core belief system. And I've got a core belief system that I'll be happy to share, and maybe this will resonate with certain people, but especially for a small business owner, I feel like this has been a huge help to me and to Lisa as we've just continued to grow and grow. And part of it is that there's a circular nature in life. And life just sort of continues and keeps going on and on. And hopefully we craft it and so that we're going on an upward trajectory where life is getting better and better. And so when I think about that, in fact, I don't know if people are watching online, if they're watching, they'll be able to see my logo here. And so I've taught this concept for years, but just imagine if you're listening on to this podcast that you have a circle with five arrows going around the circle. And the five arrows go around in sort of a circular pattern and they just continue to go. Well, at the very top of it, I envision that you live in an environment. And so your environment then impacts your thoughts. Your thoughts then impact your feelings. Your feelings then impact your actions. Your actions then impact your results, and your results come full circle back to your environment and impact your environment. And so if you're in a good environment, you're going to start having good thoughts. If your colleagues, if your spouse, if your business partners are encouraging each other, then you're going to start having some good thoughts like, wow, I'm excited about this thought. Then you're going to have some feelings like, I bet I could make this happen. I bet this could really work. And then you're going to have this notion that I'm going to take action. I'm going to take bold action. I'm going to take some big action. And then I'm going to have the results. And the results can be amazing. And then those results come full circle and make your environment better. Hey, now we have more resources. Now we have more of a network. Now we know more people. Now we can invest more. Now we can have a larger life. Now, the flip side is equally true. If you're in a bad environment, you're going to start having some negative thoughts. And those negative thoughts are going to start giving you sort of poor quality feelings. And then you're going to take lesser actions. And those lesser actions are going to give you dismal results. And your dismal results are only going to feed into this downward death spiral in your environment. So I look at everything that we're doing in terms of how I stay grounded is knowing that I just take it one day at a time. All I can do is impact right now. I can't impact the future. I can't impact the environment. I can't impact what my clients choose to do or don't choose to do. I mean, I'm going to do the best I can to educate them, but ultimately they're going to make their own decision. And so I just realized, okay, what do I need to do to improve my environment? What do I need to do to improve my thinking, my feelings, the actions I take, the results I get, and then how do I make my environment better and better?
That's great. Great story. All right. Kevin, you're obviously very wise.
Thank you.
But you started when you said you went to school and you became a waiter, and then you moved into the professional realm. So if you could go back in time and talk to yourself in your ear when you started that first job, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, such a great question, Ricardo. And it's so interesting. On my own podcast, I asked the same question, like, what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
Mm-hmm.
The same notion. So for me, what I would whisper to my younger self is never let up. Don't stop. Keep going. Just every day, wake up with, an excited energy, an attitude of gratitude, and just keep going. This is all going to work out. This is all going to be better than you could ever hope or dream, but you have to keep going. You have to take the action. You have to put in the reps. I can't go to the gym for anybody else. I can only go to the gym for myself. I can't eat right for anybody else. I can only eat right for myself. And it's a daily discipline. And so, the larger notion is just never let up. Just keep going, focus in on the direction of your dreams. And what I've seen over and over again is that synchronicity starts to happen, divine interconnections start to show up, the right people, the right time, the right opportunities show up when you show up, but you have to show up. When I'm coaching real estate agents, I recommend that they take this attitude of taking action every day. And so I have a very simple notion, which I've made into a simple number plan called the 6-12-18-6. And if a real estate agent wants to have success, but really anybody who needs clients can take a similar approach to this. Just figure out what the numbers need to be for you to have success. But for real estate agents, if they went out every day, 5 days a week, reasonable work week, if they went out every work day and met 6 people that they didn't yet know and added them to their database, you got enough information, knew who they were, they knew who you were. Now you can add them to your database. Go out and meet 6 people every day. Reach out to 12 people that you already know every day and just check in with them and build a relationship of mutual benefit and value. And then this, it's so interesting, but when I was first teaching this was like, oh, no big deal. Write 18 handwritten notes. And people are like, well, nobody does handwritten notes anymore. It's like, what if you did? But even if you didn't want to write a handwritten note, just send a personalized text or email to 18 people every day. And people say, well, who are the 18 people? The 6 people you just met and the 12 people that you reached out to. Just solidify that a little bit more with a handwritten note and just let them know, hey, it was great to talk to you. And so nice to meet you. I look forward to seeing you again. Good luck to your sister. I hope everything goes well with that thing you talked about. And then get out there and see 6 homes in your area every day. 30 homes a week. If you look at 30 homes a week as a real estate agent, you're going to know your market area, you're going to have success. But if you're in some other business, figure out what it is you need to do to stay on top of market trends, inventory, what's changing in your industry. So 6-12-18-6, and that's the type of thing that, man, if I knew that on day one, that would have shaved off a couple of years on my journey.
Fantastic. Kevin, last question for you. What advice would you give to any new marketing professionals starting their career?
I love this. This is so fun because no matter what your business is, whatever your industry is, overwhelmingly, especially if you're a small business owner, you actually have 2 jobs. One is you do that thing you do, and the other is you market to your ideal clients and get them to raise their hand and know that you are the solution to their problem. And so for anybody whether you're a marketing professional or just somebody who has a small business where you need to have clients who pay you money in order for you to have success, that's all businesses, then you really are a marketing professional in addition to being the service provider or the product creator of whatever it is you do. And my advice would be follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then the way that I adjust that for marketing is I market onto people the way that I would want people to market onto me. So I'm not door knocking, I'm not cold calling, I'm not using robo dialers because that's not how I want to be marketed to. I can't tell you how many times my phone rings during the day. I answer it, there's no one there. And it's a robo call, and somebody else answered faster, and so that person's talking to that person and not me. I answer my phone because that's just part of who I am and how I want to always be accessible to my clients. But, do the marketing the way that you would want to be marketed to. And just think, how would somebody who actually wants what I provide, how would they prefer to learn about me and my product? Then I talk about, do more than they expect. Knock them out of the park a little bit. Go that extra mile. And Lisa and I joke about it. The extra mile there's no traffic there. You're not dealing with a lot of construction. You're not dealing with a lot of orange barrels on the highway. That extra mile, it's pretty much your territory and you're not competing in the extra mile. So go the extra mile and you'll see that you really don't have much competition locally. We treat our customers, and we talk about this in our marketing, we treat our customers like their family. And with our discounted fees, our flexible lean fees at Real Lean, we talk about how we give people the friends and family discount. But we also talk to people like they're an aunt or an uncle, they're a brother or a sister. We just tell them what they really need to know. Here's the unvarnished truth. Here's what I would want to know if I was in your position. And then just let them make a smart decision. Hopefully, it'll be a smart decision to use you, or hopefully, it'll be a smart decision to work with you when the time is right. But if they can get the information they need and they're not a client, they're probably going to be an advocate for you. They're probably going to be a cheerleader for you. We've had so many clients who we just take great care of them, and then they send us so much business simply because they know they can feel comfortable passing their friends off to us because we're going to treat them well.
Wonderful story. Kevin, thank you very much for being part of IMS. I appreciate your time today.
Ricardo, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to talk with you again and just to reach into your audience and hopefully pour onto them a bit and let them know that, it's possible. You can go out there and have success. You can go out there and make the life happen that you want to live.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Insight Marketing Success, where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience from vision to execution.